Hi friends, we're going to do a little more cutting today, and all of my kids are used to cutting on index cards because they're small and they're thicker than regular paper, and so they give the kids a little bit of stability when they're learning how to cut. In preschool, we pretty much want them to cut on lines. We want them by the time they're leaving, maybe cutting out geometric shapes. In the classrooms, they do a lot of strips where they have to cut these strips and then glue pictures on a different thing, you know, all the pictures that start with an M or something like that. But what I work on therapy is putting on the scissors, using the correct position, and just kind of supporting the teachers in the activities that they're doing in the classroom. So when I start out with a child, I might have them, like I said in the earlier video, I might have them snipping straws, or I might have them practice just snipping an index card, okay? And that's a child who's, actually, if you look at it developmentally, they're supposed to be doing that by the time they're 2.5. But a lot of parents don't want to give their children scissors. And I can understand that, but you do need to supervise your child. I have been cut several times by a child who's snipping and my fingers got in the way while I was helping. So then the next thing I want to do is I want to be able to see, and I just happen to have these at home. I don't have pretty colored ones like I do at school. And with the notes that I send home, you see what your child is doing. And I pretty much describe how they're putting their own scissors on. So if you look at the therapy notes, you know exactly where to work from. If they're putting their scissors on when they're in the correct orientation, that's this. So that's the right way. Now, if you present the scissors like that to the child, some children just can't motor plan how to put the scissors on. So I start out helping them, then I have them put them on themselves, and then I say, oh, let's practice, you know, how are you gonna put your scissors on? And they have to adapt somehow. So then I want them to cut across an index card. It doesn't have to be on a line or anything. I just want them to do consecutive snipping. So 1, 2. So if they snip and pull, then they have a hard time getting back in here. And sometimes this hand's not working so well. It's either weak or they're not used to using 2 hands together, and this is not a good stabilizer. So sometimes I will hold their hand and help them stabilize it. I will not stabilize it for them, because that gets into a bad habit where they're not using that other hand. So I want them to cut across an index card, and I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, yay! And if they have a hard time doing that, I might put a sticker here and a sticker here, and they'll cut between the stickers. The next thing we want them to do is we want them to cut across a line. And I'll say like a 3 or a 5-inch line, just because this is a 3x5 index card. These happen to be gluey and I don't like that, but anyway. So I'll draw a line on the index card. I'll draw a couple of lines actually. And then I'll help them get on the line, because sometimes they're like this and they're, you know, getting on like that. I might help them get on the line. And then what I see a lot is they start to swerve and off, and I'll say, get back on the line. Sometimes I'll tell the kids that can understand, some kids understand this a little bit better than others, that these are alligator jaws, and the alligator jaws love to eat the green line. Yum, yum, yum. Eating the line, yum. The kids love that. So then we want them to cut across a 3-inch line and stay in the line. You'll see goals written within an 1/8 inch of the line. So you want them to be, you know, pretty darn close when they're on it, you know. Then the next thing I would go to is having them cut across a 5-inch line. So they're going this way. And it is a little harder to cut across a 5-inch line, just because you have more area to veer off once you can cut the 3-inch line. Then we want them to cut the 5-inch line. Sometimes they say, oh, get back on that line again, and I'll help them get on or whatever. Then the next thing we do, we practice this all on index cards, is we do a curved line. I just draw a curved line like this. And a lot of times I'll see something like this. Or they just can't, they'll just do this. They can't curve the line because this requires this hand to adjust, okay? So you have to adjust with this hand to go on the curved line. Or sometimes what I see is this. I see this hand staying the same and this hand going like this. And I'll always say, cut straight ahead, turn with this hand, and I'll help them turn and adjust with this hand. See how this hand has to turn. Then I'll use the bigger index cards for this. Yeah, you can use the bigger index cards just because as they get bigger, they get a little harder to coordinate. So I'll draw, say, a circle. Developmentally, cutting a circle comes out before cutting a square or a triangle. But if you do a square, I think a square is easier actually because it's all straight lines, but I didn't make up the tests, so they didn't ask me. So here's a square. Sometimes they can't figure out how to get, if the line doesn't come off the edge of the paper, they can't figure out how to get on the line. And I just have, what I have them do is cut on the line, cut, 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 and then they'll want to turn and cut the corner off. I'll just say, keep going and cut all the way off. And then they'll want to go like this. And I'll say, turn your card. I'll help them turn it and adjust with this hand. And cut, 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 cut all the way off. Now turn, 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 cut, and then turn again. You know, and we want to keep decreasing the help we give them. So we might in the beginning give them some physical help. You know, even touch their hand to say, turn with this hand, or, you know, help them turn it. But then eventually you want to maybe just do a verbal cue, like remember to turn instead of the physical cue also. And the circle's a little harder. Sometimes they just cannot figure out how to get on. I say just cut and then get on the circle. And you'll see how when you're cutting, the two hands have to be coordinated. This hand is going around to the right or to the left, and this hand's going the other way. So you can see that's a lot more, and they have to, you know, readjust this hand. They can't just hold it and keep going. They have to readjust. So those are some of the things I look at when I'm teaching a child how to cut. And you can practice on anything you have at home if you happen to have index cards. I mean, you can get them at Walmart for cheap. You can get them at Target. You can get them anywhere. I just happen to get colored ones because then they get to pick the color, or they have to tell me what color they want. I'll say, what color do you want? And they'll point and I'll say, tell me the name, and they'll say yellow or whatever. I've had a couple of my kids who didn't want to cut. Some don't like to have the scissors on their hands, especially the kids that are tactically defensive. They do not like to have the scissors on their hands. And so I might do some real, you know, deep pressure squeezing and just practice having them put the scissors on and do a snip, you know, and just let it go at that. Don't like make a big thing out of it. I've had other kids who just didn't want to do it. And these particular children, their mom might recognize them, love letters. So I would do A and B, and I'd say, you know, cut A to B or B to A, and I'll draw a line there. And I got them to cut because they like the letters. They love letters. Or I'll say, do cut first, and then you can play with your letter book or whatever. So that's just some ideas for cutting today.